Welcome to Elevated Practice, where we interview masters and mavericks within the field of holistic medicine and uncover unconventional stories in the field of health and wellness. I'm your host, Gretchen Badami, and every episode I'll be interviewing clinicians, scholars, entrepreneurs, and educators who share their wisdom and ideas with you. Are you ready to elevate your practice? Let's begin today's episode. I'd like to extend a big thank you to Handcraft Health for sponsoring Elevated Practice and empowering integrative healthcare practitioners to create personalized healthcare packages for their patients. Create a free account today and elevate your practice at www.handcraft.health. And now, on to today's episode. Welcome. I am here today to interview not one, but two clinicians, scholars, and educators. Dr. Jacques Moramarco has been a licensed acupuncturist since 1977, when he took the first acupuncture licensing exam administered in the state of California. He apprenticed with Si-Hun Kim, a monastic teacher practicing traditional Korean medicine, and he completed his postdoctorate work at École Européenne d'Acupuncture in Paris. From 1994 to 2004, he studied Sun Tai Chi with Sun Qirong in Beijing, China, and he is a fourth-generation lineage holder of Sun Tai Chi, co-founding the International Sun Tai Chi Association. Dr. Moramarco's 50 years-long clinical career has included an emphasis on treatment for HIV and AIDS patients at his clinic in Palm Springs, from a time when the understanding of the disease was first unfolding, and he was among the very first acupuncturists in the U.S. to integrate treatment with oncologists and immunologists treating HIV and AIDS. From 2014 to 2019, he supervised clinical interns at Being Alive, a nonprofit organization providing free wellness services to people living with HIV and AIDS. Dr. Moramarco is Dean Emeritus at the former Emperor's College, and he currently supervises doctoral students and treats veterans with PTSD in the greater Los Angeles VA health system. Jacques has authored The Complete Ginseng Handbook and The Way of Walking. He is a lifelong martial artist, practicing and teaching Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and Qigong. Dr. Yun Kim was the president of Emperor's College for 20 years. She earned her doctorate in education from the University of Southern California Rossier School of Education and has served in a variety of capacities with the Council of Colleges, the Accreditation Commission for Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine, and Korean American Family Services. Dr. Yun Kim is the founder of Emperor's Wellness. She is a fifth-generation lineage holder of Sun Tai Chi and has practiced mindful meditation for the past 2 decades. She maintains a clinical practice in Los Angeles and currently supervises doctoral students and treats veterans with PTSD in the greater Los Angeles VA health system. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, Gretchen.
I'm so excited to have you both here today. I've known you for quite a long time, dating back to when I was a student, and I've had the pleasure of working with you both at Emperor's College. Our listeners don't know this, but both of you indirectly inspired me to launch this podcast. Jacques, I was continually amazed for years hearing stories about your multifaceted global acupuncture history and your crazy stories as acupuncture unfolded within the United States over the past 50 years. And Yun, your powerful family legacy and prominence within our field constantly inspired me to think about what a shame it was that a lot of students and acupuncturists within our field didn't know the history of this medicine that I was privy to throughout the years. Jacques, since you have 50 years of experience, you can go first. Are there any stories you'd like to share with our listeners about your time learning and practicing this medicine?
Thank you again for having us here today. Going back to the 70s, would I ever have thought that acupuncture would go so mainstream, that this medicine would be incorporated in oncology centers, it would be accepted and incorporated at the Veterans Administration and being on the forefront of complementary medicine and integrative medicine. So it went from alternative to complementary to integrative. So that was the passage. Now Tai Chi, Qigong, main practices that most people are familiar with. When we practice Tai Chi at the park, we sometimes have 4 or 5 years old say, "Oh, they're doing Tai Chi." Say, it's unbelievable that even a little child knows what Tai Chi versus when I practiced it 50 years ago. I sometimes would see people walking by and in different languages. I'm familiar with a couple of languages. In another language, of course, I didn't think I knew what they were saying. Say, oh, look at these poor people. They must be mentally disturbed. Why are they moving so slowly?
And 50 years ago, it was not so mainstream as it is now. What first inspired you to start learning this medicine 50 years ago? And you were not in the United States. Where did you first study in this?
Actually, I wasn't in the United States then. I was here, but my father first experienced the acupuncture in Paris. So I was able to see the amazing results of this acupuncturist. It was a Vietnamese acupuncture. So acupuncture had been well established in France since probably the late 1920s and 30s with Jacques Morin, and then went on to be, mainstream. So mostly were physicians. They were practicing it, and they were practicing it at different universities, medical centers, research centers. So it was very well established because of the involvement in Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia and those French colonies at the time.
And then you ended up practicing here in California, and you had a very special connection with UCLA and some studies that were being done. Was it was it in the basement of UCLA?
Well, no, the connection is Dr. Terry Olson, who was one of the amazing faculty members at Emperor's College and author of auricular therapeutic books. And he was the very first researcher that did the research on ear acupuncture and scientific publication from UCLA. So UCLA was the very first acupuncture center that was operational in United States in research capacity. And it was at the basement of the psychology building. Yeah.
Ah, in the psychology building, and they were studying auricular, and then were they studying moxibustion, or they were just
There were
using mox?
most of the research was done on auricular, but they were studying acupuncture, moxibustion. Yes, absolutely.
Ah, okay, okay. I have one other question for you. I know that, you have been doing martial arts since you were very young, and at one point, was it in Los Angeles where, I don't know if you know I'm gonna ask this question, but you were
Uh,
in a martial arts class with a very famous singer. Can you tell our audience who showed up in your martial arts class and you had the opportunity to train with?
oh, well, that's a very famous singer. He's also known as the King, Elvis Presley. Yeah, so that was a long time ago.
And did you get to spar with him? Did you get to
No, only the chief instructor, Ed Parker, that was his teacher, was fine. We would not be eligible to even come close to. He was too valuable.
you didn't get to beat him up, no?
No, he can beat us up, but we never can do anything to it.
Oh my goodness, what a time capsule to go back and be able to train in martial arts with Elvis Presley himself.
The interesting thing is when some friends see the picture and they say, "Is that an Elvis impersonator?" I said, "No, there was no impersonators when he was alive.
There was no AI, right?
No, no AI either."
So many stories that at some point I wanna have you on here again to, tell all of your stories to
Yes.
our listeners who are not
Next y
privy.
next year when he's celebrating the 50th anniversary of his licensure.
Let's do that. We're gonna do a 50th anniversary
I wa-
podcast episode with you,
It's
Jacques.
Yeah,
a big deal.
so I've been in practice for over 50 years, but the license is the 50-year
No.
next year. Yeah.
What
100%
an
true.
amazing legacy. And Yun, speaking of legacies, you've lived with this medicine surrounding you your whole life.
Mhm.
Both of your parents have been prominent practitioners within our field, and you've seen this medicine since you were a very
Mhm.
young child and
Yeah.
used this medicine growing up for health and seen it grow. And now for the past 2 decades, you've run a college within our field. And you've not only graduated thousands of acupuncturists who are now practicing, but you've become a leader impacting East Asian medicine in the US. So, how do you feel about where our medicine is now? And do you have any stories you'd like to share about the growth and transformation of this medicine?
Yeah, well, we'll start from the beginning because, my father, along with Jacques, were pioneers. They were that first generation of acupuncturists in California who made the laws, made it legal. So prior to 1976, the practice of acupuncture in East Asian medicine was illegal, and you can be in prison for practicing medicine. My father was practicing at the time. Jacques was also practicing at that time. And they got together, these trailblazers, and lobbied the then Governor Jerry Brown to regulate the practice of acupuncture. And of course, all the patients wrote letters, petitioned, championed the power of this medicine, the power of the people, and they vote.
Yeah.
And they were able to convince Governor Jerry Brown to regulate the practice of acupuncture. The first licensing exam was given in 1977, and we were having dinner with some graduates of the first graduating class of emperors, and they said my father, Dr. King, he actually went through the regulation because his English was the best at that time among that first generation.
Wow.
I can picture him with his glasses going through it line by line. He and his peers did a wonderful job because California has a very wide scope of practice. We're primary
Yeah.
care providers in California, and they did it. I mean, it's incredible thinking back to those early years. They were
Yes.
visionaries, and it's just incredible. And when I was young, of course, I didn't have the appreciation for my family, for what they had accomplished, and in my ripe middle years, I just am just in awe of folks like Jacques and my father and my mother and that whole group that were
Yeah.
able to mobilize and to bring our medicine to this point where we are right now, and enjoying it, being in the VA and being in oncology centers and at the City of Hope. It's just really incredible. Really.
Yeah. They were such trailblazers, and you got to see that as you grew up. So did the practice of this medicine within the US. And
Yeah.
so, coming to fruition now as the idea of alternative medicine and then becoming integrative medicine. So we still have a long way to go, but wow, so accepted by so many people and in the mainstream. And this actually brings us to what we are here to talk about today, because you both have written a book that just recently was published. And this book called Walking Your Way, there it is for those listeners who are also watching. It is Walking Your Way to Vitality, integrating walking, breathwork, and mindfulness into your daily exercise. And this book is a culmination of many practices that are representative of integrative medicine. So, walking as a form of exercise and incorporating breath work and mindfulness and the variety of traditions, Tai Chi and Qigong and prana and Qi, your breathing. So, you have all of this in your new book. I'd like to hear, what was the inspiration for this book on walking?
So my first inspiration was seeing some of my early on full-blown AIDS patients back in Palm Springs, where they were given 18 months life expectancy, practicing some of these practices that are outlined in the book, especially the immunity walk that we teach in the book. They were able, with treatment, with support, with the herbal medicine, but as a combination, they were able to sustain themselves until the cocktails came around. So in other words, they were able to beat all those odds. And I said, this is just unbelievable. And observing the results and seeing how life-changing it was. And
Yeah.
then I start going to China and observing also individuals that were practicing Tai Chi and their health, even people that were doing traditional walks, but some of them were doing even what we have outlined in the book called backwards walking or retro walking. I saw that 30 years ago in China, which was just becoming popular now. And we put it all slowly together. And then Yun can give you her view and how she was exposed to something very special, which I was also exposed as a practitioner of Zen. One of the practices, the walking meditation.
20 years ago, when I started my mindfulness meditation practice, I had the honor of doing a retreat at Deer Park Monastery here in California, which was founded by the great Vietnamese peace activist and meditation teacher named Thich Nhat Hanh. And we actually got to do a retreat with him where we did a mindful walking meditation from the meditation hall up to the hill. There must have been over 200 retreatants, and we did this walking meditation in silence, and it was so profound. Can still remember the peace that he emanated. He wrote a wonderful book called Peace with Every Step. And ever since then, I have incorporated this into my daily mindfulness practice. And so the inspiration came from that experience. And just being in clinical practice right now, I always tell my patients acupuncture isn't enough to
Yeah.
regain health and wellness. Acupuncture is one part of our medicine, Chinese herbs, dietetics, meditation, movement. And it's very hard to tell patients, well, you need to exercise more, you need to move. They don't know what to do. How long do I need, what do I do? Do I go to
Yeah.
the gym? So, part of the motivation in reissuing this book was giving a very simple and clear handbook to our patients. This is how you can start, and you can
Yeah.
incorporate these practices into your daily life. And I myself am not kinetically gifted. I am not an athlete. I never played sports, so it's really for anybody. And we know that there could be a lot of injuries with different kinds of exercise. Walking is so safe and almost anybody can walk.
I have so many patients who come in and they have pickleball injuries, these injuries from trying to be athletic, and it can cause problems. But walking is so safe and so simple and so easy. And Jacques, I love hearing that, of course, you were giving your patients herbs and acupuncture, but you saw such profound results when they were doing walking and
Walking
breathing.
and breathing. Yeah, walking and breathing.
Yeah.
That's really
And
important.
mindfulness. It's the secret ingredient in all of
Yes.
these movements. You really wanna check in with your
Mhm.
body, your sensations, your feelings, so it doesn't have the full therapeutic effect if you're, ruminating or thinking about the past, thinking about the future.
Yes.
So it's a kind of training where we're bringing our full loving attention to the body, to the sensations and the feelings, out from the head, the ruminating mind into our bodies and giving our bodies some love.
Yeah. And the nice thing, I've looked through your book and read all the different sections, which we'll start talking about in just a moment, and seen the myriad of examples and different ways that people can choose to incorporate movement, which we know everyone needs. And we talk to people about exercise and getting movement and moving their chi, their breathing, getting the movement, but then incorporating the meditative aspects and the breath work, because so many people can't just sit
Yeah,
and meditate. They
yeah.
get too antsy. The feeling is foreign to them, or they don't like it.
Mhm.
But giving them exercises to walk and move while meditating, but not necessarily calling it meditating. Look, they can do all of these things together. So let's talk a little bit about this book. You have different walks that you recommend for people, and then you outline them. Can we start at the very beginning? What is the traditional walk?
Well, traditional walk is basically putting one foot in front of the other. However, within that chapter, we do touch on the Japanese walk, which has some press and some coverage in the last year, which is an intermittent walk, fast and slow, called Japanese walk, with recent research done, but originally the research was done 20 years ago. And we even touch on things like retro walking. I was talking about walking backwards. Please do it safely. There's certain requirements for that. But there was a very interesting individual named Harmon. 100 years ago, in 1915, he had a bet that he would walk backwards from San Francisco to New York. Under a year, it was a $5,000 bet way back then, and he was able to do it in 260 days. So we even touched on the retro walk, the backwards
Oh
walk,
my
which
gosh.
I used to never see anybody do it. Now, when I'm out at the Kennetown recreational area, there's some hills, and I see quite a number of people doing these walking slowly backwards to save their knees, to help their glutes, to help their proprioception, to help their awareness. We're talking about mindfulness. It requires mindfulness to be able to do that. So it affects your cognitive ability. It helps with things like cognitive decline. So that's the first chapter.
And I guess if you're brave enough, the backwards walk, maybe you need to have a mirror or something to be able to see
Oh,
behind you.
the gentleman that went back to New York, he did have a mirror.
In that chapter, you talk a lot about the variety of benefits to the body with something as simple as walking.
Most people say, "Oh, I must do 10,000 step," because the original step counter that was in Japan and measured 10,000 step. But all the research shows you can get great benefits as low as 2,500 step, but anything that is between 4,400 to 7,500 steps is also very beneficial. Decreases the degeneration that occurs after the age of 35. So you lose muscle mass. By doing this, you decrease that, which is 5% per year. So it really is beneficial. So that's the first chapter.
So you're decreasing your aging, you're improving your fitness, and it doesn't necessarily, for all those people who have their Apple watches, it doesn't necessarily have to be 10,000 steps.
Or it can be much less than that. If you, as an example, if you walk 5 hours a week, within 2 weeks, you will lose 1 pound. And that is tremendous. And you can just stay with your program. And we do have a section in the appendix on foods and eating according to the season, which touches a little bit on Eastern medicine.
You talk about another style of walking called vitality walking. And I like this section for all of the listeners out there who are acupuncturists or practitioners of East Asian medicine. You talk a lot about energy and qi. Can you talk a little bit about the vitality walk?
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on the vitality walk. The first thing that we talk about the vitality walk is the mudra. So we actually talk about what is the mudra. Mudra is the specific hand position. Very often we see them in yogic practices and also Tibetan Buddhism. There's a lot of activities that occur with the hand position. So the mudra for this vitality walk, you have to close your thumb into a very gentle fist. So you bend your thumb into the palm and you wrap the four fingers around it. So this is the Agni mudra, which is a very important mudra. It affects the energy system, but of course we all know as acupuncturists that the thumb is also related to the lung meridian. So it's very good for that. And the other elements in Ayurvedic medicine and acupuncture are in the other finger. So it really kind of completes your balancing, puts your system into homeostasis, calms down, regulates the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. And we combine that specific walk with a breathing pattern, which is like a Qigong breathing pattern, which requires the individual to breathe vigorously in a sniffing pattern. I'm just making the nose. And then you breathe out. And you breathe out dynamically with a step count. And then you have a couple of steps that are empty or neutral breath, which is interesting because a lot of research now is going into this hypoxia when you're not breathing and its effects on the red blood cells. It's very, very interesting. And they intuitively knew this before all the new research.
Yeah, there's a lot of research now about breath work and how it calms the nervous system. And this very similar kind of breath work is taught in the VA for vets for bringing you into the parasympathetic mode. So it's very interesting. It's a sort of a new area of research, but the ancients knew. They knew
They knew.
thousands of years ago the benefits of these kinds of activity. And just going back to the mudra that he talked about, a patient bought a book and she just incorporated the mudra into her walking. And she said that it just really helped her so much. It really energized her. And so she said that she could go up the hill and she could really feel the difference. So if there's one simple thing that you can do today, incorporate the mudra into your daily walk and see what it does for you. Yeah.
So can you repeat how do you do the mudra? Because some individuals are not on the screen.
Well, there's a diagram of a lovely hand model, which is me. Who thought that I would grow up and become a model?
Page 45.
So you want to fold your thumb into the middle of your palm and you just wrap your fingers around that thumb. And
Gentle.
babies naturally have this position. It's very comforting. And I remember as a young person, as a young kid, I would always have my hands in this position. So it's a very, very powerful mudra. And as you know, there's the lagong in the middle of the palm, which is a very important point, especially for qigong. So it activates the lung meridian, the lagong. Try it.
And it's interesting. I believe, Gretchen, you studied Sanskrit. And as you know, the first letter in Sanskrit is the A. So Agni means the primordial. So actually, even the name of the mudra gives that primordial sense.
So many places throughout the book, you're talking about not only the Eastern understanding of the breath and the body, but the Western understanding, the research, the science that is now proving what Eastern medicine has known for a very long time. And so the readers of the books don't have to necessarily know anything about Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, but they can read the research, they can see why this works, and then they can practice the exercise. Before we move on to talking about the other types of walks, this is a good opportunity to explain how people can watch these walks because you have the book laid out very nicely. You have lots of photographs in this book, and the person in the photographs may or may not be someone who we're interviewing right now. Yun is the model in the photographs throughout the book, showing the different the foot positions, the body positions as you're walking in the book. So for people reading the book, they can see the photos, and then verbally you've explained the movements, the body positions, the hand positions. So that is all easy for a person who's reading the book. But you have a secret weapon in the book to really show people how to do these walks.
It's not so secret. After each of the chapters, we have QR codes. One of my patients said the QVC codes. The QR codes that you can scan on your phone. You take a picture, and then it will bring you to a video of a model demonstrating the walks. And we have 5 different models, including myself.
And it's interesting because you might know, I think you know all the models in the book. Yeah, so the range from late 30s to mid 80s. And that's really amazing. We have a good variety of individual practicing all the different walks. So the QR codes really is the next evolution from the original book, The Way of Walking, which you discussed. That was 25 years ago, and now we've moved to the technology age. So absolutely, it's really difficult to grasp the whole thing just by looking at a picture and reading, but seeing the short little clips, they're under a minute, you get a feeling, a sense of, okay, now I understand the breath, or I understand the pace, or I understand the energetics of the movements.
Yeah. When I was looking at it, and you don't necessarily need the QR codes. When you look at the photos, it's very easily explained through the photos. You've done a nice job demonstrating the walking through the photos, and certainly if there's an older person who doesn't have a phone to scan them, or if someone's looking at them in the office waiting room, they don't need the QR codes. But boy, once you actually click on those to see the little 1-minute clip of the walk, is really helpful. And so I thought that was such a neat technological innovation. And then on a personal level, to see all of my friends, because you both are doing the walks, and then someone who we know from Jacques' personal family, who's a very physically fit young man who is doing the walks, and he's very athletic and showing a very athletic style of doing the walking. And then our dear friend from Emperor's College, who is not only a Tai Chi teacher and a Tai Chi master, but a Hollywood commercial star.
She really is a professional model. Our dear friend Marsha Hirsch.
And she's in her 80s, demonstrating that even someone who's up there in age can easily do these walks as well.
Yeah, she's definitely someone who exudes vitality in her 80s, and that really is our goal. It's not necessarily about longevity, but it's about vitality, and it's about staying well and aging gracefully. I don't want to say anti-aging because I think we are all aging, but we want to age very gracefully, healthfully, and with vitality.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we have some really interesting quotes there, and there was a quote there about that whole idea of keeping the youthfulness with the body, mind, and spirit. It's really, really something that can be done.
Let's pause for a moment to extend a big thank you to our sponsor, Handcraft Health. I prescribe a lot of herbal medicine in my practice, and quite frankly, I don't want to spend the overhead keeping hundreds of herbs and supplements on hand. Since the pandemic, I do a lot of telehealth consults and ship patients their prescriptions. Handcraft Health has been my lifesaver. It allows me to have a successful and streamlined practice and saves me money and office space. I am not tech savvy, but the platform is really straightforward for me to write and easy for my patients to pay online and receive their orders at home. It's free for practitioners to open a Handcraft Health account. It's just handcraft.health and only takes a few minutes to sign up. It's one of the easiest choices you'll make to do what you do best. And now, back to our episode. Yeah. I like in the very beginning of the book, you have a quote about running water is never stale, and the hinge of a door never gets stuck. Thus, with physical exercise and the vital energy, right? We need to keep moving so we don't get stuck.
Yeah, and that's from the great physician Sun Sin Yao, who happened to have lived 1500 years ago. And at that time, he lived 101 years of age, which is quite amazing.
Oh my gosh, back at a time when people used to die in their 40s and
Even 30s. I mean, let's look at Julius Caesar when he was, when he encountered his fate in the Senate in Rome. He was considered an old man in his mid 40s.
no. So we all need to start moving, and we all need to start walking. I also one thing that I really need is I need to calm my stress and find more
Mhm.
mindfulness in my life, and, you have a real nice chapter on walking for mindfulness and, bringing the mind to peace. Yun, can you tell us about that chapter? I loved it.
Yeah, thank you. Mindfulness is so prevalent these days. Everyone is talking about mindfulness. And it's not some grandiose thing, it's not some highfalutin concept. It really means being in the present moment, right here, right now, with you, Gretchen, with Jock, and and feeling all the sensations in our bodies. And as clinician, you know that we are not in our bodies, we're not even with our minds or our hearts. We're somewhere else. Where are we?
Yeah, just
Where are we?
running around.
Running around, worrying about the future, ruminating about the past. One of my meditation teachers, he would always talk about we always have a hope for a better past. We're always thinking about a better past. It ain't gonna happen. All we have is this present moment right here, right now. And so
Yeah.
with all of these walks, that is a powerful component that we are in our bodies, we're in our hearts, we're in our minds, and we are feeling the temperature, feeling the sensation in our feet, feeling our breath, being with our minds. That is really critical in this highly, highly stressful, overwhelming time that we are going through. Walking with purpose, walking with intention, simply feeling the feet on the ground, simply feeling the fabric of our clothes, breathing and counting our breaths. I mean, these are very simple things, but they can bring so much health benefits.
I wanted to just say something about this. This is occurred today. Today is one of the rare days that I actually forgot my phone, and I can go back and say,
Mm,
what about some of us that have a certain age? What about before the smartphones? Before you used to get a text, an email, a message, check what the world events on your phone, and you have this constantly getting reminder buzzing.
Yes.
And it's so nice not having a phone just for the last few
he's
hours.
really addicted to the phone.
Well, no, I'm not.
As all of us are. I'm not gonna
Oh,
point fingers.
all right. When we were at Deer Park once, we heard a individual that was doing a meditation retreat in Hong Kong, and they were doing walking meditation. And he actually had his phone. He says, "I am presently doing walking meditation," texting all his friends with pictures of the scenery. So it's really important to be present, and
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
all the different walks in the book, and she spoke about the mindfulness section, but same thing with one of the other chapters. Let's say the Tai
Yeah.
Chi chapter, which uh, outlines three distinct, separate type of movement walks that are based on animals, or animal spirit walk, the cat walk, the rooster, golden rooster,
Mm,
and the bear. So those, you have to be with that feeling and just be in the moment doing that specific walk.
yeah, and also the
Yeah.
vitality walk, which is my favorite, and it's very simple, and I do it all the time, just when I'm on a break, anywhere I can do it, and, we've taught that many times in the medical qigong class at Emperors, and it's one thing that we've noticed is that people can concentrate. They concentrate on the walks, and they're not thinking about the exam in the afternoon or what had happened the day prior.
Yeah.
So this kind of concentration practice where you're training the mind can carry over into your daily life so that when your attention wanders to perhaps
Yeah.
something unpleasant, you can bring it back. And the way
Yeah.
to bring it back is to focus on the breath, focus on the feet, right? Focus on the body, the sensations.
It's so important, and when you just tell like, I'm thinking about with patients, but it's with
Mhm.
any of us really, when you tell someone to just sit and meditate,
Yeah.
it's so easy to say that, but it's so hard to actually do because the mind does wander or people get antsy, and it's very hard to try to release the mind when you're just sitting, and so, yes, to be able to move the body, to have a walk and
Mhm.
something to focus on, like a pattern with the breathing you mentioned earlier with the sniffing and
Mhm.
in and out or with the walking, so much easier for someone to as a beginner or someone starting to do this, to be able to have a focus.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's much more accessible than sitting meditation, although some people prefer the sitting meditation.
Yeah.
But we know that, how did Qigong develop? By Bodhidharma.
Well, no, but yeah, I mean, Bodhidharma and there were, those very famous historical figures, or, the great Chinese physician Watto, some of the acupuncturists might know the Watto points.
Yeah.
But, the key thing there, he was the originator of these preventive movements based on observation of specific animals in nature. So he would mimic that energetics of a tiger, the energetics of a crane for balance,
Mhm.
the energetic of a bear for power, and
Ah,
so all those observations were incorporated into a preventative exercise
Mhm.
pattern. So
yeah.
we have incorporated those specifically in the so-called animal walks, and I'm saying the so-called because we all have heard about Tai Chi, and there's so much out there right now on Tai Chi, different movements on Tai Chi. We specifically picked three different practices that are within the Tai Chi realm. So those are really traced back to Watto, the great
Uh-uh.
physician.
So a person can do one of those 3, and I think you have it's a cat and a rooster and a bear, is that right?
Yes.
But those are coming from the different movements that were done in Tai Chi?
Well, yes, two of them are strictly Tai Chi, and the bears mostly come from Shingi, the five elemental practice. So it's a Tai Chi type of movement to be seen.
Ah, okay. And you mentioned that those types of postures and movements, amongst other things, are very good for balance in the body?
Balance is really a key. Now, we all have heard that individuals that fall down and break a hip after a certain age in their 60, they have a 50% possibility of a loss of life within a year. So fall prevention is a key. And a lot of
Mm,
research has been proven that Tai Chi does work. Tai Chi does work in terms of
yeah.
fall prevention as just one great benefit from it, but so many other functions like cardiovascular health. And again, when we were at Harvard, what did the great professor say about Tai Chi?
Yeah, we at the International Medical Qigong and Tai Chi Conference, we met the head of that organization who retired as the head of integrative oncology at Harvard. And he said he and his wife do Tai Chi every day because the
Wow.
research shows
Yeah.
that Tai Chi is good for fall prevention. So
Wow.
that's pretty standard. But
Yeah.
the key is to start when you're healthy.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the whole foundation of our medicine,
Yeah.
right? You want to prevent. That's the highest form of medicine. So
Right.
do
Right.
it now when you're healthy, and it's like putting money in the savings account. I always talk about this with patients. Like, you've taken too much money out of your checking account. You have not saved.
And then may I ask you, what's
Yeah.
your favorite saying from the Yellow Emperor's Classic?
Yeah, well, it's the foreword to our book. So, the Yellow Emperor's Classics is the Bible of East Asian medicine, written 2,000 years ago, and it says, "Superior physicians do not treat diseases; they prevent diseases." So,
Yeah.
treating a disease after it's risen is like digging a well when you're thirsty, or casting weapons when the battle has begun. It is
Yeah.
too late. I don't want to say it's too late
Mm.
because it's never I you know, again, it's never too late. Some patients say, "Oh, it's too late for me." No, it's never too late. You can always start anew.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
always
Good.
incorporate the
You can always
movement,
do.
the breath work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that we're just highlighting the preventative acts, but I think that's really important. Those small little step can make a drastic difference,
Mhm.
even
Yeah.
at a later age or at some advanced, ailment that
Yeah.
can be helped.
And
Sit
walking is safe.
better
It's
and
relatively safe for
yeah.
everyone, and the
Yeah.
breathing that you can incorporate with that. But you're right, I mean, if you wait until you're already too decrepit and you can't move well and you can't walk, I mean, there is a point where, it would have been easier if you'd started earlier,
Uh,
Yeah, when I went to China in my late 30s, they say, "Wait, you're too young. This is for older people." No, no, no. I'm interested. No, no. This is after 55, 60, 65. You practice Tai Chi.
yeah.
Why are you doing it? No,
So
no, no.
I was like a bookworm when I was growing up. I never exercised. I
Mhm.
hated to exercise. I didn't like sports. And so I didn't do anything. So my body was like perfectly preserved. And then I started Tai Chi at 40. So
It's a perfect time.
I wouldn't recommend that. But
You have a section on animal walks. You do have a section on boosting the immune system. And my question about that, you've mentioned it a few times. What is the key element in that walk that makes it specific for the immune system? Is it something with the lungs or the breathing?
Yeah, actually, that one is a very interesting one because that specific walk, which we call it the immunity walk, in China they called it the Golden Walk. That was promoted by this very famous artist named Guolin that had terminal cancer and went into remission. So she promoted this walk, and it's part of the oncology support groups that they have throughout the parks all over China, where people meet in the mornings and are going through different therapies, both classical and combined sometimes with Chinese herbs. And they would meet as a support group in the morning, and they actually do a specific pattern. Again, with breathing, it's called shi, shi, he, inhale, inhale, exhale. It's done slightly different than the vitality walk, but the hand positioning and the leg positioning are very specific for this walk. So it works
Oh,
on the T cells, which is right in front of the sternum, the thymus gland, works on the T helper cells. And also in acupuncture practices, you have a specific foot pattern where you actually have your stepping with your heel and you're bending and you're working on the acupuncture kidney meridian. So it has some specific uh, acupuncture energetics related to the position of the
yeah.
body in the hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible walk, and, actually, a couple days ago, I had a patient with stage 4 breast cancer. She's young, in her 40s, and it metastasized to her bone, and so, of course, I did the acupuncture, the heat, the cupping, taught her some lymphatic massage, and I said, "We have a walk in our book for cancer, to support cancer
yeah.
patients," and so I love being able to empower the patients because with these kinds of very serious conditions, they feel helpless, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're just waiting for their fate to define them. And I said, no, these are the things that you can do. You can do self
Yeah.
massage. You can do the walk. You can do the qigong diet. I just feel so grateful to be in this medicine and to have access to the wisdom of our medicine and so many different ways in
Yeah.
which we can really give patients the tool to
Mm.
help themselves. We always say we don't fix patients. We give them the tools so they
Yeah.
can help
Yeah.
themselves. And the word I love saying this doctor comes from the Latin, which means to teach. And it's
Mm.
such a privilege. I just love being able to teach patients how to take care of themselves and to stay vital.
Yes.
They just love it. For those practitioners out there, it's so important to educate and give patients a sense of agency,
Mm.
right?
Yep. And, that's what you have all throughout the whole book with all
Mhm.
of this information and these different walks and all of the knowledge that you're imparting in the book. I really like it that this one chapter here with the immune walk, I like it that specifically all of the other chapters and all of the other walks sounds like were based on a lot of sort of historical information, but this one is actually, it sounds like a woman and a doctor
Mhm.
who honed in this style
Mhm.
for the immune system and for the cancer, and you could probably use it for lots of other immune disorders. So that's nice to have that
Right.
tool to recommend
But
for your
this
patients.
is what he taught to the full-blown AIDS
Yeah.
HIV
So
patient. So
that's
he has, um, seen
Yeah,
the
I've seen
power of
it.
this
I've
walk.
seen it,
Yeah.
and again, we have like one of our colleague, Dr. Liu Dong. He does this for cancer support patients in Europe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's practice, and it's getting to the recognition. It's a great support therapy for our cancer patients.
Mm.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
supporting them with this activity, this
Mhm.
specific walk.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
call it immunity, yeah, or in the old days, they call it the Guolin walk. It's the founder's name
Yeah.
was Guolin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your the sixth specific walk that you have in there to metaphorically wrap everything up is the circle walk. And
Mm.
that is a more of a self-reflective walk. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So that is actually derived from a very specific martial art called Bagua. Ba means eight trigram. You might have seen those little figures of broken and straight line on the different the direction of a compass.
Mm,
Sometimes you see it with a mirror in front of a Chinese or Korean store or clinic as a symbol of the Korean flag. Actually, it's in the Korean flag, the yin yang and the broken and solid lines. So this circle walk for self-reflection, it also has two animal components. One is called the tiger walk, and the other one is called the dragon walk. So we even have these two energetics in this specific walk. So this is a circle walk that you can practice. And we know that throughout many different traditions, you have this circular pattern called circumambulation, which is practiced in holy places. They do it even around the Portola in Lhasa, Tibet, but they also do it around this great mountain called Mount Kalish, and
ah,
they will do the circle walk, and then people do the circle prostration. So this ability to work in a circular pattern, but the very interesting thing about this walk is that in terms of the medical use, besides the self-reflection, you have a effect on the lymphatic system, especially in the inguinal area. So really makes a good lymphatic drainage. And there's a lot of good information now about lymphatic drainage, though it wasn't emphasized as a lymphatic drainage practice. It does affect the lymphatic system. So
mm.
it has the kobu baibu, meaning the closing and opening of those hip joints that we don't do on a regular basis. Amazing. Really, really interesting walk. That one is a little bit more complex, and that's why we kept it to the last chapter. And also, the changing of the direction is done with a drone. So we have modern technology. So we have a drone taking the overhead view, and you can see how that pattern goes. And also, we have the yin yang pattern with it. So incorporating the old and the new, yin yang and the drone.
It was a lot of work.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at that QR code again and see that. I didn't catch that it was done with a drone the first time.
Yeah. The changing of directions done with a drone.
As you mentioned, incorporating what was both ancient knowledge and modern technology. You've done that not only in the making of this book, but in the information that you're given. You give so much research. Our patients love research. I love hearing about research. We know this stuff works, but to be able to hear that it's been proven and replicated, and now there's a little bit of a scientific understanding why, I I just loved going through every chapter and hearing about all of the research and the studies, and there have been so many Ivy League colleges that have done research on walking and tai chi and mindfulness. I mean, at this point, I think people should recognize how valuable it really is, and you lay all of that out in the book, which I like. You've mentioned a few times about how you can use this to help your patients
Mhm.
and how practitioners can use it to help their patients, which I know I'm gonna carry one in my office. But at the very end of the book, you also give tips about nutrition and diet and lifestyle. You even talk about proper footwear.
Mhm.
So you really lay it all out. Have you found that those aspects are important, or do you think that people can just go out and start walking around their block?
No,
What should they do?
I think we just touched on some key nutritional aspects. This is not a nutrition book,
No.
and there's so much out there. But again, evidence shows that things like the Mediterranean diet, the ability to eat also in the Eastern tradition according to the season, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And more research will validate this. The same thing as it validated things like Tai Chi. The research would show that eating some specific foods at specific times seasonal, which nowadays with the importing foods from the southern hemisphere, so in wintertime we can eat some summer food, and in summertime we eat winter food.
The book is Walking Your Way to Vitality, integrating walking, breathwork, and mindfulness into your daily exercise. How can people find this book? So it's on Amazon, it's on Target.com. Where can they find the book?
Everywhere at a bookstore
Mhm.
near you, and also indiebound.com for those who want to use an independent bookstore. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
everywhere where books are found. I'll give our new Instagram handle for the book, which is at Walking Your Way to Vitality. Very simple. And we'll be posting more information, workshops and events, book signings.
Yeah.
And we're very excited to go out into the world and actually show the walks and to answer questions and engage with our readers.
If people want to specifically find you both, Yun, I know you're on Instagram at Emperor's Wellness, and then Jacques, can people find you? Are you
Yeah, well,
are you
actually,
findable?
the only place they find me is under the suntaichi.com. Sun, like the suntaichi.com. There's a
Yes.
link to my email. So,
And we'll put that in the show notes. So it's yes,
okay, Tai,
suntaichi.com. And
yeah.
and actually I wanted to mention I don't normally promote other podcasts on my podcast, but I actually did want to give a shout out for both of you because you actually did a podcast a few months ago. The podcast was called I Can Do This, Show Me How. I wanted to mention that because you talked a lot about your family history and legacy and your coming into this medicine, and you spoke a lot about the college and the history of the medicine. And then Jacques, you did an interview on Qiological. I think it was number 410, where you spoke about your history within the medicine. And both of those I thought were excellent. I wish I was the one to have done those interviews to put all that information out there, but I think our listeners would really appreciate going to hear both of those if they have the time after they've listened to this one. I wanted to ask each of you something either unique about yourself or something that you wanted to share about your history or something to send our listeners off with that you do.
Well, practice the Tai Chi. That's Tai Chi, the great ultimate uniting yin and yang, and just be grateful that you have a practice. And whatever it is if it, I like to do the Tai Chi,
Yeah.
but it could be walking, it could be whatever fulfills you.
Dr.
Yeah.
Moramarco has done so many different forms of Qigong and Tai Chi and martial arts. And he says, just go back to the Tai Chi. That is the foundation. And he encouraged me to do a Tai Chi challenge. And I started January 1st, 2020,
Oh my gosh.
not knowing what was going to unfold. And I started out with a 100-day Tai Chi challenge.
Wow.
And it grew and grew. And I was able to complete a 1,000-day Tai Chi challenge every day, doing Tai Chi 30 minutes a day. And I'm not someone who is athletic or gifted in that way, but I really set my mind to it. And I'm like, how did I do that? But I'm so proud that I did that. And it really, I think, saved me during the pandemic when things were so uncertain and scary. I had that as an anchor every day. Would get up and like, when am I going to do my Tai Chi today? I said, I did it through perimenopause. I did it through lots of COVID. I did it every single day. And
Yeah.
it really made a huge difference in my physical and mental health during that time and after. Yeah.
Wow. What an inspiration. You both have walked the walk, metaphorically speaking. And then putting this information out, this is something that we all can do just a little bit every day, something that's easy to
Mhm.
do,
Mhm.
just walking and breathing and setting a goal for ourselves. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here today to talk about the benefits of walking and different ways of walking. And I know personally for both my patients and for my own life, I want to start incorporating this. Your book is fantastic, and I hope that our listeners have taken something from this to inspire them to do some daily walking and to learn from you different ways to incorporate this for their patients and themselves. So
Great. Thank you for having
Thank you
thank
us.
you.
so much.
That's all for today's episode of Elevated Practice. I'd like to express my gratitude to our guests, today and always, for sharing their wisdom with all our listeners. I hope you were able to take away some insights, practical knowledge, or inspirational ideas that you can apply right away to elevate your own practice. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends and colleagues about Elevated Practice. If you have an idea for an episode or a recommendation for a guest, please respond in the comments or message me, Gretchen Badami, directly through social media. Thank you, and I can't wait for you to hear our next episode.